I'd like to call the Kane County Board meeting of October 13th, 2020 to order. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Allen. Barrero.
Barrero, yeah, here.
Devist.
Here.
Raz.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Hernandez.
Here.
Boscheit.
Here.
Iqbal here.
Kenyon.
Here.
Caius.
Caius present.
Opie.
Here.
Leonard.
Here.
Lewis. Martin.
Here.
Molina.
Molina present.
Sanchez.
Here.
Shefflo.
Here.
Silva.
Here.
Starrett.
Starrett. Yes.
Present. Surgis.
I am present, correct.
Surge
Thank
is
you.
present.
Okay. Thomas.
Surge is present.
Thomas present.
Weber.
Present.
Wegman.
Here.
Winicki.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have a quorum. Please turn off cell phones to avoid distractions over the next hour, hour and a half. On the Pledge of Allegiance, please stand for the pledge and remain standing for the prayer. I'd like to ask Jim Holding, a telecommunicator for KaneCom, to come to the microphone to lead us in the pledge. Jim is being recognized today for advising a father of a 20-month-old baby who had stopped breathing and was turning blue. Jim was calm and reassured. He was calm, took control of the situation, provided positive direction, and reassured the caller multiple times. He assisted the caller in performing emergency medical direction for the baby while other telecommunicators immediately dispatched the police and fire departments. During the course of the emergency medical direction, the baby's parents advised that he had started to breathe on his own. We are so fortunate to share our work with people like Jim and his teammate, Michelle Guthrie. Jim, thank you very much.
Worships. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible.
with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, please remain standing. I'd like to ask Angie Wagner, breast cancer survivor, to come forward to lead us in prayer. Angie is a 30-year resident of Aurora and a good friend of Karen Hames and a breast cancer survivor. In early 2007, before the age of 40, she decided to get her first baseline mammogram, and it showed an abnormality. Angie elected to have a lumpectomy and was diagnosed with ductal carcinoma in situs. Luckily, the cancer was in a very first stage. She went through 6 weeks of radiation, and now 13 years later, she is still cancer-free. She is an advocate for early detection as it saved her life, and we had previous permission to introduce Ms. Wagner in that way, in those specifics. So, Ms. Wagner, we are so happy that you're here to lead us in prayer.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Today, I'm saying a prayer of hope. Help us, Lord Jesus, to hold steadfast to prayer, relying on the word of God in all despair, that our hopes in you will ever increase, while our doubts and fears slowly decrease. Help us, Lord, to be a light of hope to those who are in need, to be an example of your love and your mercy, and to tell others of your great grace and glory. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please be seated. You know, Angie, thank you so much for being here today. The first, if you don't, with your indulgence, the first piece of legislation that I had the privilege of sponsoring in the Illinois State Senate was the voluntary checkoff on the Illinois state income tax, where people could give contributions to breast cancer research at that time. It's been expanded, but over the last 28 years, all of us, because of the generosity of the Illinois taxpayers, have raised more than $12 million for research. So thank you for being with us and being such a strong example. Okay, approval of the minutes. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from September 8th, 2020 meeting? So moved by Ms. Wonicky, second by Mr. Fraz. Are there any thoughts or comments? Mr. Caius.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and board members. Referring to the approval of minutes from September 8th, 2020 COB meeting, I request that the written minutes be changed to more accurately reflect the statements on Resolution 20-300 titled Approving an Agreement with A to B USA of Downers Grove, Illinois for toll collection systems for the Long Meadow Parkway toll bridge. In the minutes state on page 5, Member Caius voiced his objections to the tollway, the unfairness to the residents of his district, and he encouraged the board to not support the resolution. While that captures some of the gist of what I said, I request that the minutes be changed to reflect that I spoke on behalf of my constituents, not just myself alone, who object to the scope of the project on behalf of my constituents, again, and on behalf of my constituents, again, not just me, who oppose the toll on this bridge, in which, according to this resolution, will be required to pay an additional $4.7 million just to provide the system to collect the tolls on that bridge. Leaving the last part of, he encouraged the board not to support the resolution.
Does anyone have any objection to that clarification being put in? Seeing no objection, Madam Clerk, is that acceptable to? Okay, thank you so much. And we have a recording. Celeste was working away hard at the keys there. We also have the recording from this morning's clarification. And so Celeste will follow up. Are there other clarifications, thoughts, comments? Okay, seeing none in the room, any from anyone on the phone? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Allen? Guerrero?
Guerrero, yes.
Thank you. Davis?
Yes.
Fraz?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Koscheit?
Yes.
Iqbal?
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Caius?
Caius, yes.
Hopi?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Yes. Martin?
Yes.
Molina?
Molina, yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Shefflo?
Yes.
Silva?
Yes.
Garrett?
Garrett, yes.
Burgess?
Sturgis, yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Wegman?
Yes.
Wonicky?
Yes.
It passes.
Okay, the motion passes. Now on to public comment. An action to place public comment on file. Do we have anyone who would like to make a public comment other than on zoning petitions? On zoning petitions, we'll go ahead and make those comments during the time that we're considering those. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a public comment? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone on the phone who would like to make a public comment in general? So I think there was a gentleman who had spoken up, asked the question, is this for the Molitor Church SSA or in general? And did that person have a comment in general?
Sir, my comment is regarding a zoning petition, so I'll wait for that. Thank you.
Okay, let me ask Mr. Martin, is that acceptable or would you like folks to speak now?
Let's wait for the zone.
Okay, all right. So are there any other folks either present or on the phone who would like to make a public comment? Okay, seeing and hearing none, we'll go forward. Next are presentations, discussions, recognition. This morning we have several. First is Jim Holden, our telecommunicator, along with Michelle Guthrie, the Director of Communications. If you would come up and take us through this program. It's a happy day and a happy day for a little boy and his family who is taken such good care of.
Yes, thank you
Michelle.
so much. As Chairman Lezen gave a summary of TC Holden's great performance, on September 21st at 10:49 a.m., he answered the call for the 20-month-old baby that had stopped breathing and was turning blue. Excuse me. TC Holden did an amazing job assisting the caller. He performed emergency medical direction, and his actions, as well as the action of the police and fire departments, assisted the baby's parents in this situation. Telecommunicator Holden has just celebrated his 19th anniversary with Kane. And following this incident, I received an email from Fox River and Countryside Fire Protection District Chief John Nixon, and from the caller, the father of the baby, commending TC Holden on his performance on this call. And I quote from the email, "Thank you to the dispatcher who tried several times to reassure me that help was on the way as I just begged him to hurry up. Those guys don't get enough credit for what they do." Telecommunicator Holden has received the letter of commendation for a job well done, and this is just another example of the impact 911 telecommunicators have on our callers every day as the first responder. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Michelle.
3,030.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Would you like to make any comment?
50.0.
Okay, well then we are going to applaud your work. So. Much. And thank you, Michelle. You do such a solid job. Thank you very much. Okay, next, recognition of Dr. Mike Fagel. Mike, would you come up, and if you have a guest and if you'd like to come up, and actually I'm going to ask you to come forward here, and we have a plaque for you today.
Wallers. No.
And I'm going to read some of this. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Mike, you had some very serious
250.00.
neck operation, back operation, just a week ago.
Guy
And
and Cora.
Mike is joining us here today for the special presentation. Eventually, I'm going to need a microphone too, if there's any comment that Mike would like to make. So there is such a long list.
8.00.
Oh, let's see. We couldn't go through the entire list of all the ways that Dr. Mike Fagel has served us in Kane County and served the nation and the world, actually. So if you don't mind, I'm going to read some of the points. Whereas throughout his career, Mike Fagel has worked tirelessly serving citizens of Kane County in many different capacities. Whereas Mike Fagel was sworn in as Kane County Sheriff's Auxiliary by Sheriff Bill Klusak, and worked at the Kane County Fairgrounds, handling traffic detail, as well as guarding the new jail back windows before bars were installed from 1975 to 1985. He served again on the Kane County Sheriff's Auxiliary from 2008 to 2014, and yet again since 2019, providing training in crisis management, emergency medical care, and other support, including tabletop exercises and training. And whereas Mike Fagel served from 1980 to 1996 as Kane County coroner, juror, and educator. From 1986 to 91, Mike Fagel served as both chairman and vice chairman of the local emergency planning committee, which dealt with hazardous material in the county, as well as inventory, education, training, and planning. Whereas Dr. Mike Fagel was on the Kane County Terrorism Task Force under Emergency Services and Disaster Agency from 1986 to 2002. He was also present, as many of you know, to help the recovery from the World Trade disaster. Whereas Mike Fagel served the Roberoy Farm Drainage District in Sugar Grove Township from 1998 to present, whereas Mike Fagel currently serves as board member of the Kane County Communications 911 Board, KaneCom, and has served since 2015. He also serves as board member on the Emergency Telephone Systems Board, the ETSB, and has since 2016. Michael J. Fagel worked for the Kane County Health Department, helping develop the county plan for mass distribution of pharmaceuticals in a crisis. And now therefore be it resolved that Kane County Board recognizes and applauds the contribution of Michael J. Fagel and desires to extend the county's best wishes for further success. We'll have a motion and a second and a resolution later on in the program. So with that, congratulations, Mike. Thank you so much for your good work.
My shortest speech. I teach a lot, so this is going to be under 2 minutes. Chairman, thank you. I appreciate it. I started out with the county here in this building, in this ante room, number 48 over here, when this was civil defense back in the 1970s. This is my county. I grew up here. I've had the help of many of the board members here, Mr. Frost, Mr. Kenyon. You've all helped us in various projects. Chris is a senator and all those other elements. And one of my most favorite times is just helping as many folks as I can. The lady in the back room with the camera up, that's my wife, Patricia. She is my brains. So wave, Patricia. That is. This is, I guess, what we all worked for. Chris, I never thought I'd ever be here at 45 years, but thank you very much. And be safe, everyone.
In the old days, Mike, I would have shaken your hand. I would have given you a big hug. So, all right, that's right. We'll come back. Okay, next on the program, as far as discussion, requests need for eligibility approval decisions from CAC, KEB, and State's Attorney's Office, both timing consequences. We have several of the department directors who would like to come forward to speak this morning. So I'll ask Roger to start out. Actually, is Barb Jeffers with us today?
I am. Can you
Okay,
hear me?
by phone. Roger, would you like to lead off, or would you like Barb to start us?
I can start.
Okay, so you're going to lead.
I have the lead on this. So,
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Roger Fonstock with the County IT Department. Thank you for giving us a minute to talk about the CAC and the CARES Act funding. I think the most important thing for the board as a whole to understand is we're trying to operate and go through a list of priorities that were recommended for an allocation last month. In looking at that, we had about 12 to 13 weeks of time between the allocation and execution of projects, and then the wrap up by December 30th, which is a deadline for the project funding. So most of the concerns that the department heads and elected officials have are related to timing, execution, deadlines, and then obviously projects that are considerable size, having some type of contingency planning for anything that might not get done by December 30th or could potentially be more than was originally projected for an allocation. So we have a resolution that was on today's agenda that had additional priorities because of some flexibility requests that were needed. We also have been going through a process with the KEB and the State's Attorney's Office to get the reimbursement information in front of them. So the allocation doesn't imply reimbursement or reimbursement of the funds. It implies that proceed and then go seek reimbursement from KEB and the State's Attorney for approval or a recommendation for those funds to pay the invoices. So there's this kind of double-edged sword going on where you have projects that need to be completed, and then you have invoices coming in that need to be paid, and then you have a process where they're going to deem something eligible or ineligible. And we've been working with Fabiola Guzman and State's Attorney's Office and Joe Onzek to try and get all of those items in order. Our first feedback had items that had been classified as eligible or ineligible, needs additional information. We've been going through that. That process, I think, has been working. The larger projects are still underway. And by larger, I mean projects that are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we'll be bringing all of that information back to KEB and the State's Attorney's Office, looking for the recommendation to get reimbursed. So at the same time, while you're looking for this recommendation to get reimbursed, we have a couple priorities that are changing. There's two on the agenda today as an amendment to the priorities list from the original resolution was 2302, and today you have 2331, which is the additional priorities. So I think our primary concern is this, do the projects, there's a short time frame. We have some contingency issues where we're estimating a project for completion by December 30th, obvious time constraints and budget constraints. But I guess the follow-up to that is the contingency plan for items that are deemed either ineligible or not completed by December 30th. For example, if you're ordering a large piece of equipment and it comes in and you're trying to get that done by December 30th, but you have some portion of the project that finishes after the December 30th deadline, that project, my understanding, could potentially be prorated into the 2021 budget. And I think that that's something that the CAC committee addressed at the last meeting. Chairman Hoshide of the CAC committee mentioned that that'd have to come back through committees, and it'd have to go back to the standing committee and ultimately finance and the full county board. I think that would be addressed in the 2021 budget. The second part is projects, like I said, that go over the initial allocation and looking at what is available in terms of contingency. Again, you've issued purchase orders, you've received invoices, and you have one of those examples on here today with the generator where we started the process. We are now well into the project, and we're realizing that there's more work to be done around that. So there's some contingency and needs associated with some of these projects, and just knowing that the board is supportive of moving these projects forward as we learn about deadlines, we learn about things that cannot be done, things that need to be done but cost additional money. So I'd just conclude by saying that timing, execution, the deadlines, and some type of contingency is an important consideration as we go into these last 2 months, and having some flexibility to address those things as they come up. Again, we're working with the State's Attorney's Office and the folks with KEB and Finance to try and get all this information in so they can make determinations. And then ultimately, there's going to be the execution of payment. Somebody's going to ultimately decide that these bills get paid. Last piece of information is that, with the December 30th deadline, and obviously the deadline is for spending the CARES Act allocation and the funding, looking at our legislative committee and how do you support the CARES Act extension legislation, things that would give more time to execute or complete these projects. I know we have some mutual concerns between the health department, the sheriff's office, facilities, building management, and then I know the clerk is running their elections, but those are the large recipients of allocations on the county side. So all of those offices would probably be in the same type of situation regarding the timing, contingency, funding, and deadlines. So there's more to make the board aware. We're going to have an election in less than a month. We're in the election right now, and there'll be some different people coming in December and different consideration as we can close out the projects that were funded under CARES Act. So just making sure that that's front and present in front of everybody as we go through that transition. So that's all I had to say, and I don't know if Barb Jeffers would like to speak, but I can answer questions.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Mr. Feinstock. Ms. Jeffers?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Chairman and County Board members. This is Barb Jeffers from the Health Department, and thanks for the opportunity this morning to share some of my concerns and requests. As all of you know, the Health Department has been engaged in these COVID-19 activities from the onset, and When the pandemic arrived in our country, we were all caught off guard in terms of how to manage this. And as we went forth, as you all know, we had less than adequate resources to respond adequately to our community and to our Kane County employee community. So once the CARES Act came, we felt much more confident in being able to respond efficiently and effectively, and to expand the resources and funds so that we can make sure that we have what we needed to begin to respond. And I agree with Roger in all the statements he has made. If we don't receive the funding expeditiously, we will be hampered in our ability to continue to respond adequately to our community. As you well know, there is no cure, and we're working very hard to maintain our positivity rate and trying to get out and make sure that those who are out there are well and safe. But if we don't have adequate funding, we will not, well, the funding is there. If we don't receive it efficiently, we will be slow in our response. We don't have funding in our regular budget to respond to many of the things that come up. And as you know, some things we have to pivot. We were not ready for outbreaks in our jails. We weren't ready for the workload that we have working remotely. So all those things required us to ramp up quite quickly. And now my largest concern is we are trying to prepare for the vaccine. If we don't receive all the necessary resources to deliver those vaccines, Kane County will be at a deficit in terms of deploying the vaccines to those needed, and it will reflect our outcome of wellness and health and wellness in our community. So my request is that we release the funds efficiently and effectively so that we can move forward in a timely fashion. As Roger indicated, this funding is over by December, and we're in competition with every health department in the country for purchasing items needed toward addressing COVID in our public. So we do intend to, our response is always to follow the guidelines of the CARES Act. We do our due diligence. We're very conservative in our response. So I ask on behalf of the health department that we receive our funds in an expeditious, efficient way. And I thank you for the consideration in releasing those fundings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jeffers. I believe next is facilities. I believe, Mr. Allen, you're here to speak for Mr. Sparks this morning. By the way, Ricky is taking his second day in 2020 vacation today. That's why he's not here. The second day with the pace that he's had 6-7 days a week. So I know that his strength is in our hearts today. And Mr. Allen takes care of capital needs with Ricky's work.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Allen.
Excuse me. Thank you for having me up here. I'm Chris Allen, Director of Capital Projects, and I would like to say that Roger nailed it for us.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Allen. Appreciate it. Sheriff Hain, I believe that you're the final speaker on this point this morning.
Yes, good morning. I'm really here to support and summarize what you hear from the department heads and especially my staff who have all been along the front lines during the pandemic. And this is a situation that still to this day evolves on a daily basis. Our community's needs and our personnel and equipment required all take some new turn every time we get into work at the beginning of the day. The department heads and elected officials have worked in lockstep since the onset earlier this year to serve every section of the county, including municipalities. CARES Act funding greatly supports our work and alleviates our taxpayers' burden from the heavy weight of millions of dollars worth of protective and proactive equipment, including the tremendous increase in working hours committed to by our dedicated staffs. As we enter in a new phase of the virus, as you heard Barb Jeffers mention, it may require even more work than what we've experienced. Increased spread, heightened protection on our congregate living facilities like the jail and many other locations throughout Kane that the health department and the sheriff's office is concerned about. And finally, that vaccine dissemination is going to be a gigantic lift. Speed and agility with critical direction from our industry experts is the only way to successfully navigate the future as we have done during the past 8 months. As you can hear, officials are growing increasingly concerned of what may or may not be approved under the CARES Act allocation process, knowing that if left unapproved, it will fall at the feet of our constituents. This concern may rightfully create hesitancy in our cumulative response. Quite simply, it is more important now more than ever to support our continued efforts during these uncertain times and fund our operations through these 4 words that have been our mantra throughout: speed, agility, collaboration, and transparency. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Hayne. Certainly, it goes practically without saying that the entire board supports the work that's being done by the CAC committee to appropriately allocate the funds that have come directly from the federal government. The essence of the message this morning is, again, appreciation for the collaboration that's taking place and the question that needs to be answered. The allocation of the dollars seems to be moving along. We have the charts, we have the amounts, we have the descriptions. I know as an accountant and not a former auditor, but having passed that section of the CPA exam, that it is important that we have the proper documentation in place. However, the message from this morning is basically 2-part. Actually, it's one, which is the agency heads and the department directors need the approval that these are eligible expenses. So it's a matter of the eligibility, and the 2 parts of that is KEB, the Springfield auditing company, saying yes because that's in the resolution, and then the state's attorney's office saying yes, and then I believe that we're practically there. It's what happens if they're denied. What happens if KEB or the state's attorney's office says no? That doesn't apply, even though all the department heads and the agency directors have been very careful in only putting forward what they believe is eligible, meets the requirement. The idea is that we're not going to send back the money to Washington, D.C. Actually, that's not the worst thing that happens. Even worse than that would be because the expenses have been approved by CAC committee and the board, and the goods and services have been ordered and delivered. If they're denied, what happens is the property taxpayers then have to pick up that load. You say, well, what happens when if anybody says no after all this work? The answer is the property taxpayer, the talk about, well, it goes into the finance committee and then, next year and possibly in that budget. You say, well, who pays for it then? Without a subsidy from the federal government, it becomes a tremendous burden. So I believe that as we all support the CAC's work, we would request respectfully that those approvals be given as quickly as it's possible. Okay. Next on the agenda, I just want to take a moment, and actually it's a little bit of good news. The COVID is a terrible, serious emergency. We all are doing and need to do our part. But there is an area where I believe that we should be grateful and where we should continue to exercise courage, but grateful for the fact that in the last pandemic, 100 years ago, the so-called Spanish flu in 1918, 1919, it killed 700,000 Americans. The estimates, and that was when the population in the country was 100 million people. 700,000 Americans died at 100 million. The equivalent math of that for this pandemic at 350 million American population would be the equivalent of 2.4 million Americans dead, 2.4. Yet we have suffered the gruesome tragedy of approximately 220,000 dead versus 10 times the amount 100 years ago. Another thing that some of us are grateful for, where we've suffered the virus and then recovered. For instance, Dave Rickert, among our own group here. Think about what it was like during the pandemic and then during the polio virus, where you would see your child become crippled or die, but crippled for the rest of their lives. You saw a president of the United States, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt went through the challenge that he had for the rest of his life. Our oldest son, Ted, married a wonderful lady whose father suffered polio as a child. At 3 years old, his mom and dad, faced with the right side of his body, had been incapacitated to this day, the right side of his body. And when all the Marines get together in Ted's group and they celebrate the collective strength of the country, they also celebrate the collective strength of individuals, and no stronger than a 3-year-old facing polio and then living with that through approximately 74 years old. We have a lot still ahead of us. It's still here. Sometimes we think, well, okay, we'll change the channel. That program's over. I'm going to go and get a pizza. It's still here. We still have to take all the precautions. And I know all of us are doing our best. But the worst of it, the 10 times worst of it, has been contained by your effort. And so that's a really good thing. And we have to protect against the fear and protect against the rancor that is brought out when people become fatigued and then depressed. There's an expression that says, demons roam when reason sleeps. And that is certainly true. So we have to keep our wits about us, and I'm sure that we'll all do our best. Okay, next we have zoning petitions. I'd like to turn it over to Development Committee Chairman John Martin to rise, discuss, and take us through the appropriate procedures to approve the zoning petition on today's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated, we have one matter before us today, which is petition 4557. It's in Blackberry Township, filed by Mary Coffey and Joe Reckinger. It's property commonly known as 40 West 015 CV Road, again in Blackberry Township, and the proposed change is a special use in the F farming district for 3 private communication towers. There were no objectors at either the zoning board or the development committee. We did receive a letter of objection from the Village of North Aurora last Thursday after all hearings were conducted, basically saying that it was in their planning district and they objected to it in the context of their future planning. The zoning board voted to recommend approval with certain stipulations. There is a typographical error in the agenda today reciting that the matter was yet to be determined by the development committee. In fact, the development committee voted unanimously to support this and recommend its approval. I'm aware of objectors or people that want to speak today. The one that I know of online, if he would like to identify himself and offer his address, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Derek McGrew. I'm the applicant representing Mary Coffey and Joe Reckinger. Basically, would it be okay if I had 5 minutes? I thought I understood on the instructions it was 5 minutes.
Yes, okay, well, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This project is similar to an installation near Elburn, Illinois, northwest of Elburn. There's a picture of that facility on the cover of my application if you haven't had a chance to look at it. The picture is roughly about 800 feet from that facility. Our facility would look identical to that one. We are, however, 1,700 feet from the nearest residence. And so basically it would look a lot smaller in size and structure than the cover. We've leased 8 acres and the facility will be fenced, gravelled, and secured. The facility will include 2 masts, 180 feet tall, and the third one is only 30 feet tall, about the size of a telephone pole. It is unmanned, and there is a generator for power outages. The masts will not be lighted, which is supported by the Kane County Forest Preserve, the FAA, the Department of the Interior, and the Department of Natural Resources. We did add some bird diverters per the request of the Department of Natural Resources that is in our construction drawings. We have secured all of our permits, excepting, of course, the special exception, a special use permit approval. We have our building permit, Township Highway Department approval, stormwater permit, fire department approval, state fire marshal approval, soil and water permit. We had to do a drain tile analysis. We also have, as previously stated, unanimous recommendation of approval by the ZBA and the Development Committee. We've had no objectors, as previously stated, to date. There are many things when we consider to place this kind of facility, including environmental effects. Well, we have to find a landowner that's willing to lease their land property large enough to meet the setback requirements. We have to be in a zoning district that allows this kind of facility. We don't affect any aviation flight patterns. We have to make sure that it's constructible and also has limited effect on surrounding properties. In my search for this property, I eliminated over 1,000 properties that for one reason or another didn't work from one of those reasons that I just listed. The proposed facility meets or exceeds all the setback requirements. We're proposed in a farming district and we're surrounded on all 4 directions by properties zoned for farming. We're not proposing the site in a floodplain or wetlands. We have all of our federal environmental permits, including NEPA, SHPO, and Phase 1. Those ensure we have no detrimental effects on tribal lands, historical structures, or any wildlife. This type of facility is unmanned. It produces no measurable noise or smell. It will not change the surrounding environment significantly. The majority of this property and surrounding property will continue to be used agriculturally. The facility would only increase traffic on CB Road by average of once per month. As previously stated, North Aurora submitted a resolution to Kane County staff last week opposing the special use permit due to the reasoning that this facility could prohibit future development of the area with respect to their comprehensive plan. The first point I'd like to make is this property is not in the village of North Aurora, it's in Kane County, and it's another large property in between that. Of course, they have every right to oppose it if they see fit. The village of North Aurora did not contact me to ask me questions about the facility, what it's going to look like, how it's going to be, you know, if we meet setbacks. So as stated, we got the resolution on Thursday last week, so there was no time to be able to reverse their opinion. That said, this facility is roughly a third of a mile. Well, let me say that I did listen to the meeting, Village of North Aurora, which was Monday last week. And one of the 2 things were mentioned was the sight line and the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan I've already addressed, but the sight line, this is behind properties that are in North Aurora. There's none facing this site. The closest properties, it's in their backyard, and it's a third of a mile away. I don't think that would be considered to be in a sight line unless you're in your backyard with binoculars. The site is also, I don't know if you can see where we placed it, but we placed it behind a row of, or a bunch of adult trees, 80 to 90 feet tall. So the majority of this facility is going to be hidden behind that. This family has owned this property for over 100 years. They have told me that they don't have plans to develop this property. Within the application, we've also submitted factual documentation about these facilities not affecting property values. They do not emit noise or smell, and we have the support of staff, ZBA, and the Development Committee. And again, I hate to say this again, but we have no opposition by any property owners. Thank you very much for this time to speak, and I'll take any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address this petition? Hearing or seeing no one, I move its approval and request a second.
Second.
Is there any comment or question? Hearing none, would the clerk please? Oh, I'm sorry. Doug?
My comment is just that from an agenda standpoint, there's no information given to us. We don't get the application. There's a map, but it's not interactive. There's no PIN number. I would just appreciate it if we would get more information.
That's noted. That is present in the development committee's packet. Should there be questions, you can refer to that, but I'll advise the staff of your comment. Any other comments or questions from the board? Mr. Copey?
Will this be a 5G facility?
No, this is for shortwave radio for religious and educational broadcasting. This isn't a cell tower.
Thank you.
Anything else? Hearing or seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Ellen? Guerrero?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Fraz?
Yes.
Hanson? Hernandez?
Yes.
Boscheit?
Yes.
Iqbal? Iqbal? Kenyon?
Yes.
Caius?
Caius, yes.
Opie?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Yes. Martin?
Yes.
Molina?
Molina, yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Shefflo?
Yes.
Silva?
Yes.
Starrett? Starrett?
Yeah.
Okay. Surgis?
Surgis, yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Wegman?
Yes.
Winicky?
Yes.
That passes.
Motion carries. The petition is approved. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the hearing.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you very
Martin.
much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Martin. Before we go to the consent agenda, what would be the preference of the body here? Wrapping up on the resolution, recognizing Dr. Mike Fagel. I don't have it on the agenda. It would be number 20-338. I'd be happy if you'd like, bring that back in next month's work. But because we've had the presentation today and because it's an honorary type of thing, is there anybody who'd have an objection to us making a motion, second, taking a vote on authorizing that, validating that? Seeing none and hearing none, may I have a motion and a second to recognize Dr. Fagel. Drew Frost makes the motion. Mr. Weber seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Ellen? Oh, sure. Guerrero?
Guerrero, yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Fraz?
Yes.
Hanson? Yes. Hernandez?
Yes.
Boscheit?
Yes.
Iqbal?
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Caius?
Caius, yes.
Opie?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Martin?
Yes.
Molina?
Molina, yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Shefflo?
Yes.
Silva?
Yes.
Starrett?
Jarrett, yes.
Burgess?
Surgis, yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Wegman?
Yes.
Winicky?
Yes.
Ellen? That passes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much for that indulgence. Resolutions and ordinances, consent agenda first. Would anyone like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Mr. Caius?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to remove item 316, 25, 9.
So that was 316, 25,
29.
and 29. I have it. Okay, thank you. Seeing none. Mr. Copey?
Thank you. In response to this letter from Joseph McMahon, I'm a little bit confused.
Oh, we're not at that point yet in the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Was that the discussion of a Cook County case?
Yes.
Yes. We'll come to that at the.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other on the consent agenda? Seeing none. Any from anybody on the phone? Okay, hearing none. May I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with the exceptions of 2307, 316, no, excuse me. I'm sorry, 316, 320, 325, and 329. So moved by Mr. Kenyon, second by Ms. Wonicky. Clerk will call the roll.
Allen, Ferrero,
yes.
Gavist, Franz, Hanson,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Wiltshire,
Yes.
Iqbal, Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Hopi,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Shefflo,
Yes.
Silva,
Yes.
Starrett,
Starrett, yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Wegman,
Yes.
Wonicky.
Yes.
Did I miss anyone?
Sturgis, yes.
Thank you. That's who I missed. Okay.
Okay, the motion passes. And consent agenda with those exceptions pass. May I have a motion and a second to discuss potentially pass number 2316. So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Mr. Caius. Mr. Caius.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's appropriate at this, as we take this vote to replace the resource management coordinator, that number one, we recognize history. We recognize the outstanding job that the last coordinator, Jessica Mino, did during her tenure here with our county. Her enthusiasm and energy for the multiple tasks that she undertook here with the county were infectious. I think she accomplished a great deal in improving Kane County's environment and sustainability programs, compliance, aggregation program, water conservation programs, coordination of lead, and the grants that they're involved, and the public education and outreach. Number two, I think it's appropriate to recognize how important it is to refill this position. The position that we are voting to fill here is vital to improve our environmental footprint here in Kane County, and more broadly for our planet. I guess partly I watched Richard Attenborough's movie last night on Netflix. If that doesn't scare the crap out of you as far as the environment's concerned, you should watch it. And number three, I would like to confirm the confidence I have in the ability of our staff to select a qualified replacement who will take us into the future. I look forward to working with this individual in environment and energy and environment, and on this important mission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to then recognize her by name?
Jessica Mino?
Very good. Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I missed that part. Okay, good. Thank you. Are there other comments, questions? Seeing none. Any from anybody on the phone? Hearing none. Clerk, call the roll.
Allen, Ferrero,
yes.
Gavist,
Yes.
Raz,
Yes.
Hanson, Hernandez,
Yes.
Hoshite,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Hopi,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Shefflo,
Yes.
Silva,
Yes.
Starrett,
Yes.
Sturgis,
Sturgis, yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Wegman,
Yes.
Wonicky.
Yes.
That passes.
Okay, that resolution passes. Next, may I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve number 20, 325, so moved by Mr. Fraz, second by Mr. Caius. Mr. Caius.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to single this resolution out to point out that I didn't vote nay on every vote on the Long Meadow Parkway. Maybe it's just a weak moment. Who knows?
Thank you.
While many of my constituents would have preferred a much smaller roadway or none at all, and while a big portion of my constituents, or the constituents I have spoken with in District 23, are opposed to having a toll bridge, the first and only toll bridge on any minor roadway in the state of Illinois so far, a toll that they will have to pay if they wish to use this bridge to simply drive across their own villages.
Don't use it.
Thank you. I wish to say that I favor this resolution, which is the legal standard for the speed limits as dictated by IDOT in this section of roadway. Also, while standing, I would like to, number one, thank Tom Rickard and the KDOT for responding to Algonquin residents, request, looks like he took off. Well, KDOT request to reposition traffic, reduce speed ahead signs, and positioning a temporary speed display trailer on the approach from this stretch of roadway to the residential area west of Whitechapel Lane. Hopefully these adjustments will help mitigate the danger to pedestrians crossing Long Meadow Parkway and traffic entering Long Meadow Parkway, which was and is a major concern to those residents. And second, I would like to take this opportunity as well. I'd like to thank Sheriff Kane and his deputies for responding to a request by residents in that area and providing patrols of Long Meadow Parkway while residents and motorists become accustomed to the new roadway.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Caius. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Mr. Copey, would you please rise?
It seems odd that is it customary that the Kane County Board would determine whether a speed limit is applicable to any given? I see. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or any other comment? Seeing none in the room, any from anybody on the phone? Hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Allen. Ferrero.
Ferrero, yes.
Gavest.
Yes.
Raz.
Yes.
Hanson. Hernandez.
Yes.
O'Shea.
Yes.
Iqbal.
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes.
Copey.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Martin. Molina.
Molina, yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Shefflo.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Starrett.
Starrett, yes.
Surgis.
Sturgis, yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Wegman.
Yes.
Winicky.
Yes.
That passes.
That resolution passes. And then finally, may I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially pass number 20, 329. So moved by Mr. Leonard, second by Mr. Davist. Mr. Caius.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's the trifecta today. In the past, I know a number of board members have thanked the sheriff for doing this, for making this agreement. And I too would like to thank the sheriff for working to put this agreement together. I appreciate, and the residents of Kane County hopefully recognize that Chief Kane has been more than fiscally responsible during his tenure. He continues to find ways to optimize his resources without reducing services or security in Kane County. But I think this one is even just a little bit more than just money. I believe, my second point is I have confidence in the sheriff's department under Mr. Kane. They will treat all inmates, no matter where they come from, in a humane, safe, and respectful manner, which is unique, possibly, maybe not unique, but very special for our department here. I think the sheriff's department has exhibited a great history. And finally, I appreciate the sheriff's addressing the concerns that I and others have had about the controversial acceptance and housing of prisoners from ICE in our jail. So with that, I'm in favor of this, and thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Caius. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo the remarks just made and also point out that there is one big difference in getting these federal detainees back, and it is a financial difference. Obviously, they'll all be treated very well, and we're very proud of that, but the sheriff, from the day he was elected until about a month ago, worked on getting them back. In the past, we were paid $60 a day for federal inmates. We are now getting $90 or $95 a day. So it's a substantial increase in the amount we're getting paid per day. And it will bring more revenue to the county as a whole. So I want to thank the sheriff myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. Any further comment? Seeing none in the room. Any from anybody on the phone? Hearing none, clerk, call the roll.
Allen, Barrero, Davis.
Well, yes.
Thank you, Davis.
Yes.
Perez,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hernandez,
yes. Hoshait,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Opie,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Cefalo,
Yes.
Silva,
Yes.
Starrett,
Starrett, yes.
Sturgis,
Sturgis, yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Wegman,
Yes.
Winnicke.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, resolution passes. Now may I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve number 2336, authorizing approval of applications, intergovernmental agreements with municipalities for distribution of CARES Act funding. So moved by Mr. Hanson, second by Mr. Fries. Any discussion, comment? Okay, seeing none from board members in the, okay. Mr. Copey?
Apologize if the confusion of discussion we had this morning, where it was, there was some.
Microphone.
Can't hear on the line.
I'm sorry. There was, if I interpreted correctly, there was a potential expense on this contingency was the buzzword, that whether it's a legitimate expense or not, and whether that's a legitimate option. And I was curious if this contingency is a portion to the resolution that we are about to consider. And is the question that I have, and this would have to come from probably an accountant's perspective, if we have examined the idea of escrow with in lieu of contingency, and file it under an accrual on the budget portion of this CARES Act funding. And I was just curious also of how many millions of dollars would be ultimately in limbo to where it's a potential that it would spin off back onto the taxpayers of Kane County. So that number is important to me. And I was curious if escrow and applying accrual to the concept is an acceptable method.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Copey. Who would like to answer that? Mr. Hoshait? Thank you very much. It's like in
Just a point of order. What resolution are we considering now? Is it 336 or 335?
This is number 336.
Or did we already vote on
Oh, I'm
335?
sorry.
No, we didn't.
All right.
I'm so sorry.
So we
I
moved
misspoke.
336. We can go out of order. That's
I-
fine.
I misspoke.
336 is on the floor right now.
Yes.
336 is a motion to allow the execution of intergovernmental agreements with municipalities whose applications have been vetted, approved for eligibility, and this would put that in a situation where upon receipt of actual documents backing up the expenditures, our treasurer would be authorized to expend the funds. So that's before us today. So, that's this issue. So I'd be glad to address Mr. Copey's questions, but I think they may be germane to another resolution.
Okay, to clarify, we'll stay on 336 because we have motion and second. You've just answered the question defining what the resolution does. The question will come back maybe in the next about contingency and the question of using escrow, okay? So any further questions, comments? I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, the public comment portion of all these was at the beginning of the meeting. And so we recognize you, we thank you for your presence and your good work on the coronavirus relief funds. Thank you.
I moved we listen to whoever the speaker was.
Okay, so are there any further comments or questions from board members?
That's Borrero.
Okay, Mr. Hanson, would you please rise?
Good morning, and thank you. I hope this full board, the members in the audience here, and all the constituents that may be tuning in late to the process of allocating these funds realize that on a per capita basis, this county board is approving a higher per capita amount for all of our municipal residents and our municipal partners. If you lived in a town outside of Kane County and if you had to apply through the state of Illinois, if you were in line in Springfield, you would be receiving less than $52 per capita. You're receiving almost $59 per capita through this program and through these allocations today. And that also takes away, and also what we've approved is taking away the burden from these municipalities for the other programs we've offered. So the per capita allocation that, whether if you're the smallest municipality in Kane County or the largest, you're getting, frankly, a much better deal than you would if you happen to be living outside of our county. So thank you for all of you for voting in favor of this today and for the hard work to get to this point.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Other comments or questions? Seeing none. Any from anybody on the phone? Hearing none. Clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Borrero.
Borrero, yes.
Gavest.
Yes.
Raz.
Yes.
Hanson. Yes. Hernandez.
Yes.
Forsythe.
Yes.
Iqbal. Iqbal. Kenyon.
Yes.
Pius.
Pius, yes.
Gopi.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Molina.
Molina, yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Shefflo.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Starrett.
Starrett, yes.
Burgess.
Sturgis, yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Wegman.
Yes.
Winnicki.
Yes.
That passes.
Okay, that resolution passes. Now may I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve number 2335. This is the one authorizing approval of applications, intergovernmental agreements with municipalities. The last one was local governments for distribution of CARES Act funding. So,
Mr.
clarification.
Chairman, point of order, I believe, and I think it's appropriate to continue to go out of order just to keep the momentum here. But next, I would ask 336, which we just approved, was for municipalities. 337, it would be appropriate to consider next, which is for other units of local government. So I will move 337.
Second that.
Let's see. Do I have, where's the other, the public? Okay. Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. So this is a motion as amended approval of applications and intergovernmental agreements with units of local government for distribution of CARES Act funding, number 2337. Correct. Okay. So moved by, I think it was Mr. Fraz, second by Mr. Davist.
No,
It was moved by Hoshide,
moved
second.
by Hoshide.
No, it's moved by Hoshide.
Had I already called the first and second?
No.
Not the second.
I'll be happy to second it.
Okay.
Mr.
Okay.
Hoshide moved it when he
Oh,
made his
okay.
comment.
So didn't I say moved by Mr. Hoshide?
Yes.
Oh, did I give it to
Moved by
Mr.
me.
Fraz? Okay, so Mr. Hoshide. Good, thank you. Second by Mr. Davist. Comments? Okay, Mr. Hoshide.
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman, I do want to thank the municipalities for their help and participation. And I know there's angst in terms of us moving forward to get everything approved. With 336 and 337 being approved, we've dealt with the municipal requirements, the park districts, forest preserve districts, townships, and fire protection districts. So we are accomplishing a significant amount here. We're continuing to work through the other processes, and I'll be glad to comment on those later on in the agenda. But I would urge everyone to vote for 337 so that we can get the other units of local government funding approved as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hoshide. Mr. Shefflow.
I just had a question. I don't know if Joe has an answer. What would be the timing of when would these distributions be actually received by the municipalities?
I think that question should be in the hands of the chairman of our CAC, Mr. Hoshide.
All right. Once we approve this, then we're authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement, which we would send to the governmental bodies. Once they sign that and then submitted their audit-worthy proof of expenditures, the funds could be released.
So that sounds like a few weeks in and of itself. Once they're authorized for release, what's the time frame for distribution from the county? So in other words, I guess what I'm hearing is that it's not really ready to be approved. We've approved an unsigned agreement.
I think that's a misinterpretation, Mr. Shefflow. The applications have been made. They've been vetted for eligibility. They've been approved. Now we're authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement that will provide those funds. And because in the beginning, the first 90 days of this process, we've stressed the importance of having a good audit trail, which I agree with. We are requiring that now the proof of expenditures be obtained. And once they're submitted and approved, the funding will be made and there'll be an application for the treasurer's office. And we've worked with the treasurer and the auditor to coordinate that payment. That was a prior resolution we've approved. So as soon as that's done, we'll submit it. And it may be 2 or 3 weeks if it takes that long for the cities to submit their requests. Anything that we talked about today, including the request from the sheriff and from building management and from the health department, certainly we could avoid the audit process. If you want to disperse that money today, let's vote on it. But in order to, we do so at the risk of having audit issues later on. So I just, I'm a little frustrated with the process of suggesting that anyone's delaying anything here. I think the municipalities are happy that the process has moved along expeditiously. We've honored their request for payment, and it may be 2 or 3 weeks, but if that's what it takes for them to get the documentation in, that's what it'll take.
Thank you, Mr. O'Shea.
I haven't suggested that anybody's delaying anything. I was just trying to get a time frame so that the recipients would know when this money's coming in, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Shefflow. Ms. Wonicky?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank all the members of the CAC committee. I know you have met several times. I've tried to attend most of the meetings, and I want to thank you for your hard work, especially considering the units of local government and the forest preserve districts. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Ms. Wonicky. Further questions or comments? Seeing none in the room, any from anybody on the phone? Hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Allen. Guerrero.
Guerrero, yes.
Gavest. Fraz.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Hoshait.
Yes.
Iqbal. Kenyon.
Yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes.
Copey.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Molina.
Molina, yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Shefflo.
Yes.
Silva. Silva.
Silva, yes.
Starrett.
Garrett, yes.
Burgess.
Just yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Wegman.
Yes.
Winnicke.
Yes.
That passes.
Resolution passes. Mr. Hoshait, as chairman of the CAC committee, would you like to make a motion on number 2335?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll move 2335.
So moved by Mr. Hoshait, second by Mr. Fraz. Mr. Hoshait, would you like to describe it?
This is simply a housekeeping adjustment that Mr. Onzik requested so that we could allocate the funds that were coming to the county in accordance with our financial policies.
Thank you, Mr. Hoshait. Any questions or comments? Seeing none in the room, any from anybody on the phone? Hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Allen. Guerrero.
Guerrero, yes.
Gavest.
Yes.
Fraz.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Hoshait.
Yes.
Iqbal. Kenyon.
Yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes.
Opie.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis. Martin. Molina.
Molina, yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Shefflo.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Starrett.
Garrett, yes.
Surges.
Sturgis, yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Wegman.
Yes.
Winnicke.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, resolution passes. Executive session, may I have a motion and a second to go into executive session to discuss personnel, settlement of claims?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Sturgis here.
Mr. Surges?
Chris, I just wanted to make sure that I'm not in error on something. During the executive meeting, when we were discussing consent agenda, item number 5 and number 6, I do business with 2 people and had abstained during that vote. Yet during today's vote, I may have inadvertently voted yes, thinking that those were coming up later. Do I need to take action on that? I'm not sure of the protocol on that.
I would think with the approval of the board that we'll just make a note on those through the clerk's office. So,
Okay, it was
Celeste?
it was exec consent agenda number 5 and number 6.
well, that was on executive committee. I think you're referring to a numbering system there. Which?
Correct.
What
Okay,
resolution?
which resolutions were those?
I believe it's 20-330. And Roger, if you can help me, I think the other one is 20-331.
Okay, well, we'll get firm clarification through
Okay,
Celeste's
thank you.
office.
And I'm so sorry.
That's all right. No, I'm glad you raised it.
So, you want
By the way, I meant to ask Mr. Hoshait, is there any other resolution or action that the CAC might need or want?
Not at this time. Thank you.
All right. Okay, now to go to executive session, may I have a motion and a second to go into executive session to discuss personnel settlement and claims pending litigation? So moved by Mr. Sanchez, second by Ms. Ronicki. Call the roll.
Allen. Guerrero.
Yes.
Gavest.
Yes.
Fraz.
Yes.
Hanson. Hernandez.
Yes.
Hoshait. Iqbal. Kenyon.
Yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes.
Opie.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Molina.
Molina, yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Shefflo.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Starrett.
Starrett, yes.
Surges.
Sturgis, yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Wegman.
Yes.
Winnicke.
Yes.
It passes.
Okay, so we're going to go into executive session. Yes. Okay, may I have a motion and a second to approve settlement claim number 19 WC 004821 by Mr. Hanson, second by Mr. Shefflow. Any thoughts or comments? Seeing none. Any from anybody on the phone? Hearing none. Clerk, call the roll.
Ellen? Guerrero?
Yes.
Davis is not here. Braz?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Oshite's not here. Iqbal? Iqbal? And it's not here. Caius?
Caius, yes.
Copey? Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Martin? Oh, he left early. Okay. Molina?
Molina, yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Shefflow?
Yes.
Silva? Silva? Starrett?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Starrett?
That was Starrett. Sorry, Starrett votes yes. And Silva may have as well.
You know, I'm confused here. Silva, did you vote? No, she's not here. Starrett?
That was a
Starrett,
yes.
yes.
Okay. Surgis?
Surgis, yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Wegman? Winicky?
Silva, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, that passes. And then,
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's see, may I have let's see, before I call for a motion in a second, I'd like to ask Mr. Weber, as one of the co-chairmen of the Jobs Committee, if you'd hold on so that we can discuss part of what's coming in your committee's direction. May I have a motion to adjourn? Anybody like to adjourn? Mr. Sanchez, second by Ms. Wegman. Although, let's see, clerk, call the roll.
Ellen? Guerrero? Adjourn?
I'm confused. I thought Mr. Weber was going to talk or something, and now we're going to adjourn.
The motion in front of you is to adjourn.
Okay, adjourn.
So that's a yes. I guess Davis is not here. Franz?
Yes.
Hanson? Yes. Hernandez?
Yes.
Iqbal, did you ever come back? No. Caius?
Yes.
Opie? Yes. Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Yes. Molina?
Molina, yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Shefflow?
Yes.
Silva?
Yes.
Thank you. Starrett?
Yes.
Surgis?
Surgis, yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Wegman?
Yes.
That's it. It's passed. Guys are adjourned.